Order, order. Could I call the committee to order and welcome the Leader of the Opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, as our witness for today. This is our ongoing inquiry into anti-Semitism. You have been commended for your work on diversity and racism, but there is a great deal of criticism about the way in which you have handled the issue of anti-Semitism. Why do you think there is so much criticism by Jewish members of the party and by the Jewish community and others about the way that you have distinguished between your incredibly strong record on fighting racism in respect of black and Asians and others, but your weak record in dealing with the issue of anti-Semitism?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here and obviously to take part in questions and discussion. I have spent my life, as you correctly say, opposing racism in any form within our society. Since I became leader of the party, it was brought to my attention that there were cases of anti-Semitic behaviour being reported at Labour Party events or indeed in public by members of the party, and our compliance unit took appropriate action, and some members of the party were suspended of their membership. In total, less than 20 were suspended, all of which are a part of a due process. I became concerned about this, and so I asked Shami Chakrabarti to undertake an inquiry along with David Feldman and Jan Royal into anti-Semitism in the party. I promised that would be reporting by the end of June, and it has indeed reported.
Indeed, and I was present at the press conference when it was launched, and I will refer to the Chakrabarti inquiry in a second. Do you want to take this opportunity of condemning the words used by Ken Livingstone and distancing yourself as leader of the Labour Party from what Ken Livingstone has said in his reference to Hitler's support for Zionism?
Ken Livingstone made remarks that are wholly unacceptable and totally wrong. They were drawn to the attention of the party compliance unit very rapidly. A decision was made within a very few hours to suspend his party membership. He is now, the remarks are now being investigated by the party, and due process will take place.
So you're happy to condemn, not happy to condemn, but you do condemn what he has said. You don't believe for one moment that what he said to this committee, that the crisis has been stirred up by embittered Blairites?
No, I think we have to condemn the way in which he made the remarks and the remarks themselves, and the equation of Hitler and Zionism at the same time. And as I said, his case is being investigated. Due process is underway.
Now, Jackie Walker, a vice chair in the Momentum movement, wrote about the African Holocaust and Jews as chief financiers of the sugar and slave trade. Why is she in the Labour Party while Ken Livingstone has been suspended?
Jackie Walker is a woman of black Jamaican heritage and European Jewish heritage. And as I understand it, she became involved in online discussion about the history of the slave trade and the financing of the slave trade. And unfortunately, she then became involved in a discussion about the gradations of horror that go with that. And she was indeed suspended. She made strong representations to the compliance unit of the party. I wasn't a party to any of that, and she was subsequently reinstated on this. And I think she's somebody that does have a deep understanding of issues of racism that have affected her and her family in her life.
So you're happy to have someone in the party who's made those comments?
She has explained herself, and I wasn't present at the meeting when she explained herself, and therefore I was not a party to the decision to reinstate her. I'm content that she's now been reinstated in the party and that she will make a positive contribution to our party and not in any way indulge in any activities that would be damaging.
So has she apologised for the statements that Jews are chief financiers of the state and slave trade?
I don't know what she said to the compliance unit, so I cannot confirm that one way or the other.
But would you like to have... Those are not comments that you would associate?
No, I certainly wouldn't make those comments myself, and I think it's an inappropriate way of doing things.
Now let us just deal with what I regard as 6 tests, 6 opportunities that you've had to deal with the issue of anti-Semitism, which you have found yourself wanting. the first and the most recent, is actually at that press conference, when you made a comparison between the democratically elected Israeli government and Daesh. The chief rabbi described your comments as offensive and alarming, and you were subsequently reported to your own party's General Secretary by the Jewish Human Rights Watch. Would you like to take this opportunity to clear this up, that you didn't mean in any way to compare a democratically elected government, no matter that it holds a different view to yours, with the criminals who run Daesh, ISIL?
At no stage did I make that comparison. I'm disappointed.
Our Jewish friends are no more responsible for the actions of Israel or the Netanyahu government than our Muslim friends are for those various self-styled Islamic states or organisations.
I'm disappointed that that reference was made by the chief rabbi or anybody else. What Shami Chakrabarti...
The comparison. You never said that in a sentence.
No, I didn't say that. Can I complete the answer? What Shami Chakrabarti says in her report, and I endorse, is that because somebody is Jewish, they shouldn't be expected to have special knowledge or support or opposition to the State of Israel and its activities, any more that somebody who is a Muslim should be expected to have special knowledge, support or condemnation of the government of, say, Saudi Arabia or Iran or Pakistan, and it would be wholly wrong.
But various self-styled Islamic states or various self-styled Islamic states or various self-styled Islamic states or...
But you have never made that comparison.
I said Islamic states, lowercase. It would have been better with hindsight, and many things are much better with hindsight, as every one of us around this table is well aware, if I'd said Islamic countries rather than states.
So you did make the comparison, but it would have been better if you hadn't used those words. Mr. Chakrabarti, there is no need to nod at the back.
If I'd used the word Islamic countries, there would have been no doubt whatsoever. I'm disappointed that some people decided to say that I'd made an equation. I had not made an equation.
So you never said those words?
Absolutely. I do not make an equation in that way. As far as I'm concerned, the activities of ISIS, ISIL, Daesh are wholly wrong and wholly...
Sad, shocked and insecure. Those are the three words that the President of the Board of Deputies chose when asked in this committee 2 weeks ago about how he felt when he heard of Mr. Livingston's comments, your friend Ken. There are 300,000 Jewish people in this country. Are you upset that you and your friend have upset them in this way?
Ken Livingstone has been suspended from party membership following the remarks that he made. So obviously, we have taken action as a party.
Now, you have very clearly said today that you've had problems with words, because you've got Islamic states and Islamic State mixed up.
No, I didn't say I had problems with
Friday.
words. I said I had problems with the way in which some journalists chose to interpret what I said, and I felt that if I'd used the word country rather than states, lowercase states, there would have been less confusion.
All right, I'm going to try and make it as easy as possible for you then, because I'm going to ask about your actions as opposed to your words. Stephen Sizer is the vicar banned from the Church of England for 6 months after suggesting Israel was responsible for the 9/11 attacks. Why did you write a letter of support for him, claiming that Mr. Sizer had been victimised because he dared to speak out against Zionism?
Zionism is a political system that is a form of racism. It's a form of apartheid because it elevates one race against other races.
Mr. Sizer had done a great deal of work on support for human rights for Palestinian people over the years. I absolutely don't agree with him on his ideas of the conspiracy theory. I just thought that his previous work should be recognised.
All right. Another one. Sheikh Raed Saleh suggested that Israel carried out the 9/11 attacks. He has been convicted of funding Hamas and he's been banned from the United Kingdom. Yet you invited him for tea on the House of Commons terrace.
At that time, he wasn't bound to the United Kingdom. He was visiting the United Kingdom. He is a citizen of the State of Israel. He carries an Israeli passport. He came here and he did address, I think, one meeting in the House of Commons, which I did not attend, He was due to come to a subsequent meeting here. In the meantime, he was arrested and was put under house arrest where he was for some months. I took that opportunity to have a long discussion with him in which I reiterated my views on racism in general, which I've explained to Mr. Vaz earlier on.
You went to him for tea rather than him
he
coming to
wasn't
House
allowed. He wasn't allowed out, so that was the only way of doing it. He was under house arrest in Ealing.
But you went to visit him for a cup of tea rather than him coming to the House of Commons?
Well, he couldn't leave the house, so that was the only way.
Okay. It's not really where the tea was, it's the fact that you proceeded to continue having cups of tea with him.
I had a discussion with him about his views on the position of Palestinian people within the state of Israel.
إن شاء الله قريبا وعلى الأبواب ستكون عاصمة عالمية للخلاف.
Doing the general hue and cry that somehow or other Sheikh Salah is a dangerous man. He is far from a dangerous man. He's a very honoured citizen. He represents his people extremely well, and his is a voice that must be heard. The solutions to the issues facing the Palestinian people are not going to be achieved by overwhelming powers being used by European cabinet ministers, in this case the Home Secretary, to try to prevent him being heard. And he has fought a very tough campaign ever since last summer in order to assert his innocence and his right to visit this country and his right to speak freely to people in this country. And I hereby renew my invitation to Sheikh Salah to come to Parliament, meet with me, meet with my colleagues, and you will be assured of a very warm welcome. And I look forward to giving you tea on the terrace, because you can...
And then Paul Eisen, who describes himself as a Holocaust denier and says that I question that there ever existed homicidal gas chambers. He has suggested that you helped fund his campaigning endeavours. Have you?
Paul Eisen founded a group called Deir Yassin Remembered. Deir Yassin was a village that was destroyed during the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. He used to hold an annual event called Deir Yassin Remembered, and I indeed attended some of those Deir Yassin Remembered events. He actually lives in my constituency. As far as I was concerned, what he was doing about Deir Yassin...
You've been to a lot of demonstrations in your time, in Parliament and before. If there was a demonstration organised against anti-Semitism, would you take part in it, and would you be in the leadership?
Of course I would support a demonstration against anti-Semitism as I would against any other form of racism.
David Burris.
On what basis do you condemn Ken Livingstone's remarks as being wrong and unacceptable?
The use of the Hitler comparison on the issues of Zionism in Germany in the 1930s, the historical parallel that he drew.
So on the basis that they're racist and anti-Semitic?
I think it's a wrong comparison to draw, but his remarks are subject to investigation. There is a due process going on within the party. I think we must let that process take... It's not for me to comment on the process that's going on.
No, but you have done. You've made a judgment that you've condemned...
No, I made a point about the remarks. I made a
unacceptable.
point about the remarks, and I think we should allow it to be...
No, but so you made a judgment that they're wrong, they're unacceptable.
We made a judgment that he should be suspended.
Okay. Despite condemning it, despite saying it's wrong and unacceptable, you won't tell us and make it clear as others, let's just look at the list. We've got the Chief Rabbi, the Board of Deputies, the Holocaust Education Trust, the Jewish Labour Movement, and many other Jewish people in my constituency, and no doubt your constituency, regarded as racist. Why don't you agree with them?
There is due process taking place on Ken Livingstone. I condemn the remarks that he made. That is why I and others were...
Finally, is it appropriate to honour, and in your words, to describe it as your honour and pleasure to host anti-Semitic organisations such as Hamas?
In the context of that, I've explained many times since it was drawn to my attention, interestingly some years after it happened, was that it was inclusive language in order to bring people together to promote a dialogue, a peace process. And as I explained to some of your colleagues, I have met people in many contexts, Northern Ireland, Colombia, and many other places, with whom I totally and profoundly disagree, and you would probably totally and profoundly disagree with them. You only bring about a peace process if you talk to others. Indeed, former prime ministers have met Hamas on many more occasions than I have, and indeed on one occasion, on a visit to Gaza, I was with 60 European parliamentarians in Gaza after Operation Cast Lead, and we had a long meeting with the government of Gaza, which, as you well know, is Hamas. Does it mean we approve of Hamas? No. Does it mean we want to see an end to the siege and a peace process? Absolutely yes. That's why we were there.
But what it does mean,
and they were all parties, by the way.
Just to check on your views, that but you do believe, looking at the Charter of Hamas, which you're very familiar with, that it's anti-Semitic.
It calls for. I don't agree with the Charter of Hamas, but I do think you have to have.
Which is it anti-Semitic?
You have to have a dialogue with people that you disagree with.
It is anti-Semitic, isn't it?
Well, Mr. Durham, may I help? This is what it says from the Charter. The Prophet, prayer and peace be upon him, said, "The time will not come until Muslims will fight Jews and kill them, until the Jews hide behind rocks and trees, which will cry, 'O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, come on and kill him.'" That's in the Charter.
That is completely unacceptable, obviously.
Is it anti-Semitic?
Yes, it is. But right. I say, and indeed the Israeli government on many occasions has, by proximity, met with Hamas, as Hamas has met with them. Is there a space for a peace process?
Report, you said the Labour Party is built on the values of solidarity, social justice, equality, internationalism and human rights, and it's my determination to uphold those values which drives my question today and no other consideration. You also said in that speech, and I quote, "To assume that a Jewish friend or fellow member is wealthy, part of some kind of financial or media conspiracy is just wrong." And in light of that, I just want to clear up this issue of Mr. Wadsworth, which has been brought up several times, because of course in front of you he did accuse, as has been said, our friend and parliamentary colleague Ruth Smeeth of working hand in hand with the Daily Telegraph. And Ruth, as you know, she is Jewish and is also a former deputy director of Hope Not Hate, the anti-racism and anti-extremism campaign. Now, I know you weren't chairing that press conference, but why, I mean, for the sake of clarity, because I know you have said you feel that it has been misreported, but why at that point, immediately after Mr. Wadsworth made that claim, he was given a mic, I've watched it, why didn't you call him out for attacking Ruth Smeeth at that point?
Shami was chairing the press conference. She called him out. I answered his point. The second point he made was a legitimate one concerning black representation within the party.
But
I absolutely concur with what Shami Chakrabarti said to him.
But do you accept that ordinary Labour Party members would have wanted, with all those cameras rolling, to see you taking a lead in calling him out and taking him on, not waiting for the chair of the press conference, which was a Labour Party organised press conference, but as our leader to call him out for repeating what was a stereotypical slur in relation to Jewish people?
He was called out. He is called out.
You didn't do so.
And I haven't tried to join it.
It's very open.
And Conservative members have to go to a leadership hustings at 5:30, which is something the Labour Party hasn't yet embarked on. Can I just come back to Hamas and Hezbollah? So when you said, tomorrow evening it will be my pleasure and my honour to host an event in Parliament where our friends from Hezbollah will be speaking, I've also invited friends from Hamas to come and speak as well. They aren't your friends, you've said, so you misspoke.
It was inclusive language I used in order to promote what I hoped was going to be a productive dialogue. I would rather I
so
had
you
not...
misspoke. Okay.
Misspoke is what Larry Speakes used to say. I would rather have used other words.
Okay. So you employ Seamus Milne, don't you?
Seamus Milne is Director of Communications, yes.
Right. Is he a friend of Hamas or Hezbollah, do you think?
I think you better ask him that.
Well, you employ him, or your party.
He is Director of Communications, a professional employee, Director of Communications, and I do not think it's appropriate for me to be asked questions on the views of every single member of staff I employ.
Okay, but surely you would want people employed in your office and in the Labour Party who don't have embarrassing or offensive views. So surely you must be able to ask answer on behalf
Mr. Milne works extremely hard on behalf of the Labour Party as Director of Communications,
and you're leader of the
dealing
Labour
with
Party.
issues, and I don't think it is appropriate for me to be quizzed on his individual views. He's a man of immense intellect and scholar. He has written many books, and he works extremely hard.
I'm not interested in
office.
how many books, how hard he works. I'm sure he's a fantastic human being. But when he, at a rally, praised Hamas for their spirit of resistance and chanted that they will not be broken, do you think that sounds as though he's acting as a friend of Hamas, or did he just misspeak as well?
I'm unaware of that incident.
Seamus
Milne is Director of Communications, and as such works on our behalf to put forward the Labour message and sometimes deal with, how should I put it, erroneous reports that appear in many of our papers and journals of what my views are or are not.
Chair, in order to get to the bottom of it, would it be appropriate if I played the video in front of the committee, where very clearly Mr. Milne is quoting himself as saying that?
Mr. Lawton, it would not be appropriate to do so, but if you would like me to do so, I will write to Mr. Corbyn after this meeting and send him a copy of the video.
So let's move on. So you're not prepared to condemn any comments which Mr. Milne may or may not have made, but we've got it on video. So is Ken Livingstone a friend of yours?
I've known Ken Livingstone since 1971 as an extremely active member of the Labour Party. I first met him when he was a Lambeth councillor, and then went on to become leader of the GLC.
Of your relationship.
Yes,
he's a friend.
Of course.
And is he still a friend, even though he's been suspended?
I took part in his suspension from the party. He is under investigation. In those circumstances, it would be wholly inappropriate to be involved.
But you're still a friend of his?
I'm not an enemy of Ken Livingstone. I want Ken Livingstone to mend his ways.
Okay, but is he still a friend? Because you seem to place quite a lot of store by misusing this word friend or not. Would you describe Ken Livingstone now as a friend?
Ken Livingstone, as Mr. Amuna pointed out during the evidence that Ken Livingstone presented, has done a fantastic amount in London on anti-racism and many other issues.
I didn't ask whether he is a fantastic loyalist.
No, I didn't ask.
I just asked if he's a friend. You asked for succinct questions, Mr. Chairman. It'd be quite nice to have succinct
Ken Livingstone
answers
has been a friend of mine for a very long time. I was very upset and very disappointed at the remarks that he made. He was suspended from the party as a result of it. He is under investigation. I think that shows just how seriously we as a party take this issue. I don't recall any other party doing it the same way.
But I'm sure, Mr. Corbyn, if you've...
I think Mr. Lawton just wants a simple answer.
Sure.
Is he a friend or not? That's what.
Look, he's had an answer. Of course, Livingstone has been a friend of mine for a very long time, but we suspended him from the party because of the remarks that he made, which are now under investigation.
Chair, I really am trying to keep it short and simple. So the truth is, Mr. Corbyn, isn't it, that when it comes to anti-Semitism, as we found out when he appeared in front of our committee before, and if you read the transcript, Ken Livingstone is a serial offender. And only now have you found that his remarks are only inappropriate, but you remain a friend.
Listen, I disagree with his remarks. I think...
Is it the first time you disagree with the remarks?
Goodness, I've known Ken for a long time. There's been lots to disagree with.
To do with anti-Semitism?
I think that his remarks are wrong, and I hope that the investigation will deal with that. There is a due process going on.
Okay, so Ken Livingstone says he's never seen or heard anti-Semitism in the Labour Party in over 40 years of activism, which is almost as much as you. Have you seen or heard any?
As I explained to Mr. Vaz at the beginning of the evidence session, in my own experience, in my own constituency, absolutely not, ever. Yes, in other places there has been. And yes, that is why we set up this inquiry into it. The extent of it is limited, I'm pleased to say. I want it eliminated altogether. That surely is the function of a political party that seeks to bring about a cohesive, coherent society that we oppose racism, and anti-Semitism is a form of racism.
Final question, because you do seem to have a bit of a problem, Mr Corbyn, about people who raise the prospect that Labour might have a problem with anti-Semitism, as did Guardian journalist Jonathan Friedland, certainly not a puppet of the right, in his column. Under your leadership, and you said he's not a good guy at all, and you accused Mr Friedland of utterly disgusting subliminal nastiness. What did Mr Friedland get wrong in raising the subject of potential anti-Semitism in the Labour Party that led you to write him off in such a harsh way?
Well, Mr Friedland has on many occasions made remarks that are detrimental to my character, to the extent that he was writing an article about Bernie Sanders and his success or otherwise in New England, and somehow or other managed to draw an unfavourable comparison with myself, which seemed to me stretching things a little bit far, shall we say. And he has said that there's been a rise of anti-Semitism in the party in general terms since I became leader. I don't accept that. I am absolutely opposed to anti-Semitism in any form, as opposed to racism in any form.
About some charges that you've been bringing lately, I think that perhaps you're being a little overzealous.
Which charges do you mean, then, sir?
Well, for instance, this one. Loitering with intent to use a pedestrian crossing. Savage, maybe you're not aware of this, but it is not illegal to use a pedestrian crossing. Neither is smelling of foreign food an offence.
You sure, sir?
Also, there is no law against urinating in a public convenience or coughing without due care and attention.
If you say so, sir.
Yes, I do say so, Savage. Didn't they teach you anything at training school?
Oh, sorry, sir.
Some of these cases are just plain stupid. Looking at me in a funny way. Is this some kind of joke, Savage?
No, sir.
And we have some more here. Walking on the cracks in the paper. Walking in a loud shirt in a built-up area during the hours of darkness. And walking around with an offensive wife. In short, Savage, in the space of 1 month, you have brought 117 ridiculous, trumped-up and ludicrous charges.
Yes, sir.
Against the same man.
Yes, sir.
A Mr. Winston Kodogo of 55 Mercer Road.
Yes, sir.
Sit down, Savage.
Yes, sir.
Savage, why do you keep arresting this man?
He's a villain, sir.
A villain?
And a jailbird, sir.
I know he's a jailbird, Savage. He's down in the cells now. We're holding him on a charge of possession of curly black hair and thick lips.
Well, there you are, sir.
You arrested him, Savage.
Thank you, sir.
Savage, would I be correct in assuming that Mr. Kodogo is a coloured gentleman?
Well, I can't say I've ever noticed, sir.
Stand up, Savage. Savage, you're a bigot. It's officers like you that give the police a bad name. The press love to jump on incidents like this, and the reputation of the force can be permanently tarnished. Your time on duty is dominated by racial hatred and petty personal vendettas. Did you get some kind of perverted gratification from going around stirring up trouble?
Yes, sir.
There's no room for men like you in my force, Savage. I'm transferring you to the SPG.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Now get out!
Sorry, sir.
Oh, and mind